Hey guys, in this video I'll talk about how to find the area between two curves. So let's say we have these two curves. We'll call this f of x and g of x. And we want to find this area between the two curves from the interval from a to b. So we know that an integral is the area under a curve. So let's say we're talking about the integral of f of x. When we find the integral from a to b, we found this area under f of x from a to b, and we can write that as the integral of f of x from a to b. And if we do the same thing with g of x, we find this area under g of x from a to b, and we can write it like this. Now looking at the graph, you can see that the area that we want, the area between these two curves, is simply the area under f of x minus the area under g of x. So in this picture, it's the pure red part. So we can just write this as a subtraction statement. We want the integral of f of x from a to b minus the integral of g of x from a to b. And we can consolidate this into one statement, one integral, by writing the integral from a to b of f of x minus g of x dx. And this is the general way that we find the area between curves. So now let's take a look at this example. Let's say we want to find the area between f of x, which is sine of 1/2 x, and g of x, which is cosine of x plus 3, in the interval from negative pi to pi. So first we need to find out what the higher function is, because we would have to subtract the lower function from the higher function in order for the area to be positive. We can see that in g of x, the maximum value is 4, because cosine's maximum value is 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. But for f of x, the maximum value is only 1. So we can see that this function will always be greater than this function. When you look at it a little further. So we can write the integral to find the area between the two curves. And we see cosine of x plus 3, which is g of x, minus sine of 1/2 x. And we can evaluate this integral, and we see it's 6 pi. So from negative pi to pi, the area between cosine of x plus 3 and sine of 1/2 x is 6 pi.